I was a correctional officer at a supermax prison. It was near Florence, Colorado. I stayed as an employee there for half a decade. I saw almost everything you can imagine. Escape attempts, stabbings and riots. Also, sharp weaponry that was hidden in places you would rather not visualize. These are only some of the more unpleasant occurrences I have dealt with in the past. I am currently writing this on encrypted Wi-Fi from an undisclosed but safe location. I have had a change of careers, following the events of the tale I am about to share with you now. I hope that people thinking about becoming prison guards read my story and reconsider any future life choices they will look back on as a mistake. The warden called me into his office on a Monday. During the entire walk there down the hallways, I thought about the trouble I could be in. "Shut the door," he said as he looked up at me from his desk after I entered. Those words sealed it in my mind, how much hot water I was in for some sort of infraction I was not aware of yet. Bureaucratic micromanaging and constant procedural changes were nothing new to me. I still hated petty political grievances. I nodded and sealed the entranceway. He demanded I take a seat, so I did. "You're the best officer here," he said. I waited for the but. I anticipated news of termination. I saw a forced transfer to some mundane position filing paperwork headed my way. "I want to give you an opportunity," he said. "You will make $600,000 in 1 year. Your benefits will remain unchanged. You would have less oversight than what is present for you now. You would be in a leadership position, albeit an isolated one." "That sounds ideal," I said, as my mind swam in the possibilities of how much profit he offered. "There are only 2 things we ask of you. One is that you cannot tell anybody about your new position. 2 is you locate somewhere else. There's a prison in the Arctic, and that is where your life will be for the next 365 days. The confusion must have been readable on my face. "If your wife asks, tell her that you are going to a federal academy. There is no cell service or Wi-Fi there. Any contact you make with her must be through snail mail. We will handle the addresses given. If you decline this offer, then this conversation never happened. Do you understand?" I contemplated the pros and cons. Before I became law enforcement, I was a bodyguard. I was gone from the house for extended periods. Even though it would be time with the wife lost, the fortune would help both of us. I agreed. The prison facility was a large compound, not much bigger than the place I had patrolled before. A few things jumped out at me when I first laid eyes on the populace there. They all had wounds on their faces, and they spoke a strange, guttural language I was unfamiliar with. Why do they talk in such a bizarre tongue? I asked myself as I would walk down the blocks. The new warden I worked under had the last name of Buckley. He had noticeable scar tissue beneath his eyes. His attitude towards me at the beginning was hardly welcoming. If anything, he acted as though I was a burden. He seemed to resent me due to the mere possibility of having to train me on things. One evening, Buckley ordered me to do a cell extraction. Christopher Aluko was the name of the inmate we had to deal with. On the walk there, I asked my boss what Aluko had done to end up here. "I'm not allowed to tell you what these scumbags have accomplished to wind up here," Buckley said. He started his career in crime by cannibalizing his sister though. Tonight, our only goal is to get him moved to the hole. He's proven himself to be way too dangerous to share space with anyone. The doors of each cell were closer to that of an insane asylum than a prison. They were complete barriers that you could not see through. It was me and 3 other guards who were about to deal with this high-profile detainee. The supervisor was present, doing the thing the bosses generally do. That is to say, he remained on standby and did not get his hands dirty. Upon walking in, the first thing I saw was a loco sitting upright on his cot. I noticed he was huge. At least 6'8" and 320 pounds of pure muscle. His skin cracked all over. His face had the normal scarring that I associated with most people in the place. "I'm going to need you to stand up and put your hands behind your back," I said. I kept my hand near the holster where my pepper spray was. "Show me respect and I'll show you the same," I continued. "You won't have handcuffs on for long if you cooperate." "You are not better than me," a loco said. His voice had a baritone quality, which I expected from a man of his size. What I did not was how weird it sounded. It was as though 4 or 5 people were chanting the words in unison. "All right," I said. "Let's get you moved to where you need to go. The faster we do this, the better off we'll be." "You shot at someone in broad daylight when you were in a gang years ago. It took 10 years for the paranoia to go away. The fear of the cops coming to arrest you for potential murder before you became a low-grade one yourself. To this day, you don't know if any innocent civilians got caught in the crossfire." We had to restrain his huge arms and placed the metal bracelets on his wrists. He laughed all the while. As we brought him to solitary, I thought of his words and how much they unsettled me. They were true, and that story from my past was one I had not told anybody. Near the end of the shift, Buckley went into one of the sniper towers and smoked a cigarette. Since my duties for the day were complete, I took the spiral staircase to the level he stood on. When I saw him, I was only a few mere inches away from where he puffed. He did not seem to mind or even care about the footsteps behind him. He focused on the distant and lowering winter sun. "The caged animal back there said something which he shouldn't have," I said. "Part of the job is having thick skin," he said as he flicked his cigarette over the edge into the snow. He turned around to face me. "It's not about that," I said. "Did he hurt your poor little feelings?" "He had an insight into my past that no one has," I said as a bitter taste filled my mouth. "Well, that's unfortunate. Means you lied to the oral board when you got into the position you're in now. You shouldn't lie to your employers." "I need to know what kind of prison this is," I said as I felt blood rush to my head. "Why does everyone have open sores all over their face and body? Are they exposed to some kind of virus? And if so, are we susceptible? Either that, or they're always high on something. That would explain why they always speak gibberish. Also, how in the hell do they know things that I haven't even told the closest people in my life? Better to do the job assigned. Don't worry about things above your pay grade." Buckley pulled out another pack of cigarettes and lit one. "I hope we're not exposed to dangers we weren't warned about. I'll have to find a way to get the word out. If you break your non-disclosure agreement, it would be far worse than a termination. Your wife back home, the one with the dark curly hair and nice curves, I'd hate to see the impact of your decisions on her." That's when I grabbed him by the lapels and shoved him to the ground. I considered throwing elbows. The idea of making him taste his own blood was satisfying. I did not want to be incarcerated in this den of misery though, of all places. Buckley started laughing. What he did next took me by complete surprise. He patted me on the back with his free hand instead of trying to defend himself or resist. "You've proven your point," he said as he pushed on my chest. "Now, get off of me. I don't want to give the signal to one of my buddies in the next hour. He has a modded Remington 700 pointed at you." I released him. After he stood and brushed some frost off, he made eye contact with me. I respect your bravery. Most people wouldn't be willing to do that to me, especially someone beneath me in rank. Tell you what, I'll shed a bit of light on what kind of place this is for you. And if I ever find out you told anyone, you'll wish you would have died at birth. I felt the adrenaline start to wear off. As my energy lowered, I nodded, thereby giving tacit agreement to his new offer. I looked to my left and saw the sniper he was referring to. It occurred to me that if he wanted to take action against me, he could have had me executed right then and there. Buckley waved at me to follow him as we made our way down the steps. He escorted me through the yard. Ice encased the weight sets and pull-up bars. We followed the chain link fence to another facility that had coded key access. After we put in the correct digits, he swung the door open. We made our way down a hallway that did not seem modern. There were lit torches on the walls. The flooring was pallid cobblestone. He brought me into another room, which was the size of an auditorium. A man stood up. He wore all black clothing with a white collar, and it took me a while to recognize him as a priest. I saw rows of long tables, once fit for a king in an ancient era. Crucifixes, rosaries, chalices of water, and stacks of dusty books lined every corner. I skimmed some of the titles and saw that a few were in a different language. Father Lamora, Buckley said as he stared at the man of the cloth. What are you doing down here? The priest pointed to his left. When I shifted my eyes in that direction, I did not immediately notice the presence of a fourth person in the room. This was one of the inmates tied down on a slab. As soon as we focused our collective attention on him, the man came to life. He started struggling against his restraints. A red-tinged substance poured from his mouth like foam from a rabid dog. I have almost driven the evil entity out, the priest said. Buckley turned to me. What is going on here? I asked. I had the irresistible urge to run screaming in the other direction. I knew I could not take my chances out in the harshest cold, but a part of me was willing to at least try. This prison's budget comes from the Vatican. We only take inmates possessed by something greater than general sadism or psychopathy. In the official government paperwork, they call this place the House of Daemonium. If you want to atone for the sins I know you are guilty of, now would be an excellent time. Help us read the incantation needed. To cleanse this heathen